Hello and welcome to another demonstrational video here at Emm-Bee Motorhomes. This time it's a 2019 Bailey Autograph 754. So I'm filming this just before it's going in for valeting, so if you can see past the dirt on the outside of the motorhome on this occasion, but we're not busy. So to open the bonnet on this model, it's this here. So you just open that lever there, that opens the catch, the first catch on the bonnet, which we'll come to in a second. To darken off the blinds on this motorhome, you pinch these two together, slide this across, and there's a magnetic strip which holds the blinds in place like so. When you're pulling these back, make sure you go straight in order that you don't crumple the blinds up. Exactly the same situation on the windscreen here. You just pinch those two together, draw that across. There's a little notch that's cut out for the rear view mirror there, and there's a magnetic strip on the opposing side, and that's how you join these two together. When you put this back in, just make sure that they're clipped in properly, just to make sure that that doesn't slide across as you're cornering, which could cause you a distraction while you're driving. Okay, so underneath the bonnet, okay, so we've already opened the catch on the pillar inside. To open that up, you put the retainer in like so. What we've got here is the washer fluid fill. You've got your coolant, brake fluid, oil fill, dipstick's just there with the red head on it. If you ever need to jump start this vehicle, then the positive terminal goes onto here. You do need the key for that actually. Okay, so you put the key into here, slide that cover back like so, put your positive terminal onto that metal tab there, that metal tab. Okay, so if you're jump starting this vehicle or jump starting another vehicle from this, positive terminal onto there, or the red terminal, and your black or earth terminal goes onto this one here. You've got a chassis plate here, so this is the one to refer to. This is a 3.5 ton vehicle. I think this customer has inquired about increasing that, and we've given them all the relevant information concerning how to do that. Okay, we'll just go back in here for 1 second. To your tyre pressures are displayed here. Your fuel is filled via this here. You do need the the Peugeot in this case key for this one, and it also requires AdBlue. So this has got the AdBlue additive, and that's where you fill that up. The AdBlue will tell you on the dash when it requires filling, so don't let that your AdBlue, don't let that go beyond empty on the dash, because it will it'll send the engine into limp home mode. Okay, so to swivel the seats around on this cab, it's this lever here. Okay, so it's got captain's chairs, both driver and passenger, so you just pull that lever and that will allow you to swivel the seats around. And then on the passenger side, exactly the same, it's this lever just here. If you ever do need to access the engine battery, it's underneath this panel here in front of the passenger's feet. Okay, working on around the motorhome then. The first locker we come to is the gas locker, so it requires 2 gas bottles. They're fixed in position via these straps here. You've got a gas regulator here, so that regulates the pressure from the bottles. You switch the bottles on the tap on top of the bottles. This goes on to this here. We might need to just get a new one of these, because I think the rubbers come out at the end of it, but we'll sort that out. So what this does, it's got what they call a crash valve. Okay, so you can actually have the gas switched on while you're traveling, and this little lever here, if you push that in, that switches the gas on. If it senses that there's an impact, it will actually push that little green tab out there. So that's what they call a crash valve. All right, but if you've got gas that you're bringing with you, we'll happily fit that for you when you're here. So that's your gas locker. Okay, next to that we've got an external gas outlet, so you can use that for a barbecue point. To switch that on, it's that yellow tab on top of there. What happens with this is you put a flexible hose onto this end of this brass fitting, and that would go off to whatever gas appliance you've got on the outside. And then you push this into here like so, and then to release it you push that collar back, and that releases the brass fitting. The one next to that is where your electric supply comes in. There is a cable in the under bed locker on this one, so that's where the mains supply comes into the motorhome. And this is a mains supply out of the motorhome. So if you've got a mains appliance outside, save you having to put a cable through the window. So that's a 3-pin mains plug. Okay, so this is just an access to the under bed storage. I'll show you that when we go inside, but you can lift the bed up on the inside. So that's just access to the outside storage. This here is the vent for the Aldi boiler. So if you're heating your water or the motorhome on gas, in winter you will get steam rising up from here. So it's important that that's kept clean and free of debris. So that's the exhaust for the boiler. These things on the floor here are a winder for the awning and also a strengthening strut for the awning fabric. There's a separate video on our YouTube channel about how to operate the awnings, but that winder basically goes into that hook on the awning itself there, and the awning is wound out in that manner. Okay, so this model's been fitted with a rear view camera. Obviously just need to make sure that that's kept clean. If you get water on that, it will give a distorted vision, so just be careful that it's clean and dry. Next one along then is the toilet cassette. So all the toilet waste ends up in this. To empty this, and there's an indication on inside to tell you when it is required to be emptied, you just lift this orange handle up like so, slide the cassette out of its housing, push this nozzle forward here, undo the cap off the end. So with the cap off, turn this upside down and pour the waste away. As you're doing so, press this button in here. It lets air in as the liquid is being poured out of this end here. Once it's been emptied, what I tend to do is fill it back up with fresh water, swill it around and empty it again. To do that, you just push this back, open this lever up here and fill. Okay, so once it's completely empty and ready to be used again, then you put the required amount of toilet chemical into this, close this lever back up, slide that forward, make sure your nozzle is that way, and it's ready to go back into its housing. This has got wheels on it, so you can wheel it over to the disposal point, and also an extendable handle. Okay, so when it's ready to go back into its housing, it's got a handle on the top, you just push it back in like so, making sure that this clips back into position like that. That's lockable with the keys. Underneath that you've got the waste water outlet. Okay, so there's an indication on the inside to tell you how full or empty the waste tank is. There's a tap system on this. Okay, so you just turn in this lever here to drain down the waste water. So everything that goes down the sink or down the shower ends up in a tank, and that's how you empty it from there. Okay, these are two vents for the fridge. What it does is it draws cool air in at the bottom and expels warm air at the top. It's important again that they're kept clean and free of debris, because that's what cools the fridge as it's operating. This hose on the floor here is a specialist hose that Bailey supply. This end here goes into the motorhome, onto this flap here, and it can only go in one way, as you can see. So that's how you fill the motorhome up with water. To release it, you pull these blue tabs here, and that takes it away from the housing in the motorhome. This end goes onto a site, onto the site water, or at home if you want to fill it up at home, and it's just a standard hose fitting. Okay, that concludes the outside bit. I'm inside the motorhome now. So above the main entrance door here we have the control panel. To switch the 12-volt control panel on, you press this button here. Okay, and then to scroll through the menus, it's these arrow keys here. Okay, so water level, fresh water level 10%, Wastewater level 2%, you can count that as 0 basically. These are not deadly accurate, they are just an indication. Internal tank, what you can do with this, you can actually switch it to fill an internal tank. Just leave the settings as they are, because you want your internal pump to pump from the internal tank. Okay, so we've got external temperature, a settings menu. You can select which battery you want to use, so in 99.9% of the cases you want that to be leisure. If you switch that to vehicle battery and empty both batteries, obviously you will have a problem because you won't be able to start the engine. So that needs to stay on leisure. That's how many amps we're drawing from the battery, and that's how many volts the battery's got. Okay, so it's dead straightforward. So this here is an enter key basically for this menu as you're scrolling through it. That switches your water pump on. Basically that pumps water from the water tank, which I've showed you how to fill, through the water system, through all the pipes, and eventually out of your tap. When you first fill up with water, what you need to do is purge the system through. Okay, so your water tank is housed here, just in the middle, and I'm going to show you how to empty that in a second. But what you need to do when you first fill up with water is make sure that all the water has been pumped through, all the pipe work. Eventually it'll come out of your tap. So you need to switch your tap onto hot, wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap here, and then all the air has been displaced out of the pipe work, out of the boiler, and is your water system is ready to use. If you switch your boiler on without doing this, basically all you're doing is heating thin air in the boiler, which could damage the boiler. So your boiler is housed here. So if you switch that on without purging through all the water through the system, you're just heating thin air in there and it could damage it. Okay, so what you need to do when you first switch on your when you first fill up with water, switch on your pump, wait until you get water coming out of your tap, and then your boiler is ready to use. That switches your lights on inside the motorhome, that switches your lights on outside the motorhome. This is your heating system. To switch this on, it's a simple press on there. Okay, so then you press your menu. You select your desired temperature via this digital control here. So in this case 25 degrees. This selects your water temperature. So if I was using this, I would just leave that on hot, the highest setting, and mix it with cold water. So therefore you've got a lot of warm water. Next one down is your fuel. So if you want to use electric, it's this one here. You can select 3 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt or 1 kilowatt. The reason for that is if you're on a low ampage site, you can blow the fuse if you put it on 3 kilowatt. So if you're on a 13 amp site, which is high, use 3 kilowatt. If it's a really low ampage site like 8 amps, even 1 kilowatt could be in danger of blowing the fuse on the site. So that's the reason that you've got that selection. If you want to heat the water and or the vehicle on gas, then you just simply press that button there. When you first connect your gas up, exactly the same as the water system, it will take a while for the gas to come through to the boiler and ignite. So you may get a warning on here to say that it hasn't ignited. If that's the case, switch it off, wait a few seconds, switch it back on, and it's just dragging the gas fuel through the pipe work and eventually igniting inside the boiler. You can heat it on gas and electric together, or just electric if you are on a site and you've paid for your electric. It's not very efficient at heating on 1 kilowatt of electric, so if you leave it on that and expect hot water within 20 minutes, it won't happen. That you need to probably heat it, get it hot first on gas and electric together, and then you can switch the gas off. To switch this off, a long press on there, and that's the heating and water system switched off. As previously mentioned, the water tank is housed underneath this flap here, and to empty this, To empty that, you undo that, and just inside here you can probably see there's a bung. Remove that bung and that empties all the water out of the freshwater tank. Very important that you do that in winter. If water is left in any pipe work or in the tank in the motorhome and it freezes, it will crack the pipe work and damage the tank. So for drain down procedures, you need to drain down the wastewater tank, which I showed you on that grey tap outside. Pull the bung out of here. Open up the taps, make sure these are all open inside, in the kitchen and the bathroom. And then your boiler is housed here, okay? Now, obviously this will contain water. It's very important that you drain this down. If water's left in here and it freezes, it can damage all this pipework that you can see here and inside this boiler. To drain this down, it's that yellow tab there. That is now in the closed position, so it's retaining its water. That is open. So what that does is it drains all the water out onto the floor underneath the motorhome. So if you try and pump water through your system and that valve is in the upright position like so, it's just going to pump it onto the floor. That needs to be closed. Okay, so that's the usable position. Whenever the vehicle's in use, that's how it must look. Okay, so I've just gained access to the underbed storage here, where we've got carpets, the hose that I showed you outside, and there's a reel there with an electric cable in. This customer's asked us to fit a television bracket there, and also a television bracket here with a television, which we've done. To use the toilet on this system, basically lift the lid. This valve that's on the front here opens and closes that blade, which I showed you is on the outside on that cassette. So if you slide this to and fro like so, it's opening and closing that blade. Okay, so you open the lid up, open the blade up, use the toilet, press the flush button, and then remember to close the blade back up. If you travel with that blade open, you could have the contents of the toilet swirling around in here, which you don't want. When the cassette is full, this light will illuminate. Again, there's taps in here, exactly the same principle as I showed you on the kitchen tap. The water needs to be purged through from here. It also needs to be left open whenever you're draining the system down. Here we have the fridge. It's a three-way fridge. Okay, so to operate this on mains electric, straightforward, it's just a picture of the mains electric. 12 volt, it will only work off the engine alternator. It really only keeps the fridge cold. It won't get it cold. It's just keeping it cool as you're traveling. You need to probably get it cold first at home. And then we've got gas. It will cool on gas. It's efficient on gas, and it's efficient on mains electric as well. When it's on gas, you would need to ignite it. You do that by pushing in this here, pressing in the ignition button, and waiting until that orange lever goes right into the green zone there. When it won't ignite now because we've not got any gas connected, but once that orange needle goes into the green zone, it moves over. There's a dial, it moves over. You need to keep these pressed in, keep them pressed in for 10 seconds, count to 10, and then when you let go, you need to just make sure that orange lever there, that orange dial marker, stays in this green zone. If it does, then you can let go of these and that's the fridge ignited. If that needle moves over into the white zone again, it means it's gone out. Okay, so you need to then press these two in again. This is your temperature dial, so if it's a red hot day, then obviously you need the fridge to work a little bit harder. If it's freezing cold outside, don't have the fridge on full because it'll just ice up. To open it, you press that button in like so, and you've got a freezer section in here as well. If you leave this fridge closed for any length of time, you get stagnant air building up in here. It'll start to smell. There's a little lever that'll stop that from happening. If you push this forward here, push that forward, it pushes this little piece of plastic forward here, and it means that the trigger here can't locate straight onto it, so it keeps the fridge door slightly ajar. Okay, so I think we've got some fuses in the front area here. I'll just locate those. Sorry, I'm just in the wardrobe area here. Something I've overlooked. The heating system uses a radiator system, and the header unit, the tank, is here. There's a level on there. When it's not in use, the level, there's a minimum and a maximum displayed on here. When it's not in use, it could go below minimum, but what you need to do is read it when the heating's on and hot. As long as it's in between minimum and maximum, that's fine. The table for the front diner area is stored in this wardrobe here, and we fitted a Wi-Fi system for this customer, the box for which is just here. I think the fuses that I was looking for are housed just here. Or maybe not. Okay, so in this area here, where the bed is, you've got the fuses. Okay, so you've got 12-volt fuses here that are labelled up. They're the lower ones, and then at the top you've got your mains fuses. So if they flip down like so, like your circuit breaker would at home, then there's an issue with the 12-volt system, and then you've got your 12-volt fuses just under there. Okay, that concludes the video. I'm sure there may be some questions from that, but I'll be happy to answer those on the day that you collect. And we look forward to seeing you on the happy day that you collect your beautiful new Bailey motorhome.